Greetings from the Cotswolds, England, in a small office surrounded by trees, which feels appropriate given the nature of our work to establish an international law to protect the earth. I'll begin by setting out our present legal dilemma by way of an example. Last year, Joe Kaiser, then CEO of Siemens, was challenged over the company's provision of equipment for the Adani coal mine project in Australia. His response was regretful, and I quote, "While I do have a lot of empathy for environmental matters, I do need to balance different interests of different stakeholders as long as they have lawful legitimation for what they do." We all know you can't ask for a government permit to kill people for your new business venture. But you can ask a government for a mining, drilling, or logging license that could significantly destroy ecosystems, destabilize the climate, and demolish ancient sacred sites along the way. It is the lawful legitimation of such projects at their most devastating, which enables the continuing destruction of Earth's vital and precious ecosystems. Ecocide, a root cause of the climate and ecological crisis. It means that with all the goodwill and ambition in the world, we are still only crawling in the direction we should be sprinting in, to reach not only net zero, which is merely a necessary first step, but to reach a world which has half a chance of thriving. We are right now simply trying to play our familiar game better, and it's an incredibly dangerous game. Essentially, we're dancing with fiduciary duties at the edge of a precipice without a guardrail. What if we didn't just try to play better? What if we actually changed the rules of the game and put that guardrail in place? What if instead of dancing at the very dangerous edge, we recoiled in a healthy way from destroying habitats, species, and the very cultures which know how best to guard them, just as we recoil from mass murder? Governments, for example, should not be held to ransom via investor-state dispute settlements for the future profits of fossil fuel corporations, when the International Energy Agency has clearly stated we must keep fossil fuels in the ground. That is not a tune we should be dancing to. What if there were a rule that removed impunity, keeping fiduciary duties out of that dance? This is what an international crime of ecocide will do, creating individual criminal responsibility for key decision makers at the highest level. At first glance, it might seem that it's all about putting the bad guys in the dock. And once it's in place, prosecutions will indeed be able to be taken in any ratifying jurisdiction. But this is not the true aim. It's fundamentally about changing norms and deterring the harmful practices by creating the necessary parameter for a genuine shift of direction. It's about creating a new and healthy taboo in the form of personal criminal responsibility. As of June this year, there is a legal definition of ecocide, drafted by a panel of top international criminal and environmental lawyers convened by our foundation. Bringing together diverse legal experience and expertise from around the world, and led by renowned British-French barrister Philippe Sands QC and Senegalese jurist Dior Falso, it is drafted as a fifth international crime to sit in the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court alongside genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and the crime of aggression. The core text is just one sentence. Ecocide means unlawful or wanton acts committed with knowledge that there is a substantial likelihood of severe and either widespread or long-term damage to the environment being caused by those acts. It's simple and clear. It's based strongly on legal precedent, and it addresses the worst harms while also taking account of and reinforcing existing laws that may vary from one jurisdiction to another. It does this by means of the two thresholds contained in it, one addressing the severity of potential harm, and the second, the illegality or recklessness of the act or omission. Also, like some of the other crimes listed in the statute, it is framed as a crime of endangerment, not of material harm. Just as directing an attack against a civilian population is a war crime regardless of actual harm to that population, so acts threatening severe environmental harm will constitute a crime in and of themselves. which, when you think about it, is very sensible in the case of ecosystem damage, since we don't want to have to wait until half the planet is destroyed before working our way back to find who is at fault. Insurers, investors, CEOs, and policymakers, and indeed the public at large, all know in our hearts that profound change is needed if we're to emerge from this crisis, not unscathed. We only have to watch the news to see it's already too late for that, but with a fighting chance of surviving and thriving. Which is probably why 14 member states at the International Criminal Court are already publicly talking about ecocide law at government or parliamentary level. Bangladesh, Brazil, Bolivia, Belgium, Canada, Chile, Finland, France, Luxembourg, the Maldives, Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, the UK and Vanuatu, as well as Scotland, the European Parliament, the Nordic Council and the Interparliamentary Union. A number of others are in conversation on the subject behind closed doors, even if they may not be ready to speak out yet. It's clear this law is on its way. Insurance executives and political advisors are already telling us they know it is coming. They just don't know exactly when. We estimate that states could be ratifying it within 4 or 5 years. And while that may seem slow, when we are aware of the terrifying apocalypse of fires and floods already unfolding in California, Siberia, central China, Turkey, and Greece, to name but a few, this time is needed to prepare for its arrival, because the implications will be broad, and necessarily so. Ecocide law is not a distraction from other more immediate actions addressing climate, legal or otherwise. All those other actions are deeply supported by its very approach. This isn't about tinkering at the edges of how many toxins can we use without breaching regulation. It's about genuinely leveling the playing field, protecting life and empowering practical and positive change. It's a long overdue health and safety law for the planet, if you will. Our collective work is now to welcome it for the lifeline it quite literally offers, and to do this by preparing the ground, both legally in terms of increasing training, knowledge, jurisprudence and research in areas of environmental harm, improving regulation and strengthening enforcement of existing crimes, and in collaboration with the corporate world regarding the adaptations to method and scale that will be required in practice to bring human economic activity back within a safe operating space. The inspiring thing about this is that we have the most extraordinary resource at our fingertips, the largely untapped knowledge and imagination of a vast range of experts working within all sectors of industry, education, and more. In our culture, we have become so accustomed to siloed approaches and sector-specific policies dictated from above that we forget the relevance and richness of available expertise and genius already present right across society. To give a simple yet emblematic example, my closest colleague has a brother, let's call him Fred, who works in massive energy infrastructure projects. When he heard about ecocide law, he had a whole string of specific questions. How will that affect the way we construct this? What about the budget for that? What about the lads working on the other? He's not an awkward voice of resistance. On the contrary, he's a highly informed, curious, creative expert, perfectly placed to dig into exactly what will need addressing and why for his particular industry. And there will be millions of other Freds, not only in every sector, but also in every school. The school strikers call their movement Fridays for Future. What if that were taken seriously? What if every Friday afternoon, everywhere, every office, workplace, legal chambers, farm and classroom became a creative think tank for practical solutions in the light of this approaching law? We're faced with an existential global crisis. A few hours of everybody's week seems a small price to pay for the solutions that we could unleash. Much of what we need is already available: renewable energy, circular economy, regenerative agriculture. Now it's time to activate and prepare for a law that will actually support these solutions and many more besides. In a few short years, I believe the Mr. Kaisers of this world will be answering differently about what is covered by lawful legitimation, and they and our planet will feel so much better for it. Thank you.